Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Ask the Experts virtual event featuring Ohio Governor's Expedited Pardon Project. I am Michelle Reynolds, and I have the distinct privilege of serving as the Director of the Governor's Office of Faith-Based and Community Initiatives. I will be your moderator for today's event, along with my colleague, Mr. Ron Todd. Today's event is being hosted in partnership with the Governor's Office of Faith-Based and Community Initiatives and the CARES Justice Institute. Before we get started, I would like to share a few basic instructions. Thank you for coming. We appreciate you joining us today to learn about this very important initiative of Governor Mike DeWine. Due to the number of attendees on the line, we have muted all lines and it will remain muted throughout the whole event. We are asking that if you have a question, please post your questions in the Q&A feature on the screen. The webinar is being recorded and will be made available on the governor's website after the event. Our agenda for today includes opening remarks by Governor Mike DeWine and opening remarks by the Honorable Judge Walter H. Rice. Following their remarks, we will have a presentation on the Governor's Expedited Pardon Project. Following that, we will have a panel discussion and a Q&A session, and we will wrap up with resources and contact information. At this time, we will have opening remarks from Governor Mike DeWine.
Michelle, thank you very much. Thanks everybody for joining us. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's an honor to be with my friend, Judge Rice, who I've known for many years. We've worked on things having to do with the Wright brothers and justice reform and other things over the years. So Judge Rice, thank you very much for being one of the hosts, and thank you for an amazing career. We appreciate you being a part of this today. Let me tell you a little bit about how this pardon project really came about. One of the things that only a governor can do is issue pardons. And it's a responsibility that I take very seriously. After a few months after I became governor, I noticed that we were getting a lot of applications for people to be pardoned. But the vast majority of them were people who were in prison, people who were in there for very serious offenses. And in the great majority of those, after you looked at them, you came to the conclusion that you simply cannot issue that pardon. But it struck me, and part of this comes from, frankly, some people I know, friends of mine, who got into trouble at some point in their lives, many times at an early, young age. Many times it was connected to a drug addiction, committed crimes, feeding the habit of the drug addiction to feed that habit. Then went on, they either served time in prison or they served out a probation period. And then they went about their lives and they become great citizens. But there's always that kind of cloud over their head because they have a conviction for that felony. Conviction that sometimes stops them from getting a particular license. Many times it's nothing more complicated than it stops them from being able to coach their kids' basketball, their kids' football, being a volunteer for this organization or that. Sometimes it does impact their livelihood and their ability to move up and be able to get a better job. And so knowing that, we started to try to look at this. And what we found is that the pardon process for most people was pretty cumbersome. And many times people felt that they really needed to get a lawyer to do it. And so what we wanted to do is to come up with an expedited procedure to make it easy so that they could apply. And we didn't want to short circuit checking out the crime, checking out their background, but we wanted to make it a lot easier. And what you're going to hear about today is this what we call this expedited pardon program. We unveiled this about a year ago with great high hopes. We have not seen it live up to its potential. And so we're taking another real push at this. And I think this meeting together today is going to give us the opportunity to really expand it. We're working with Ohio State Law School, University of Akron Law School. We hope to expand this to other law schools around the state as well. You'll hear more details about it, but the basic principle is we've laid out some criteria. And if people can meet that criteria, then the matter goes to the state parole board. The law in Ohio says that before I can issue a pardon, which comes from my constitutional duties, my constitutional rights as a governor, power that I have as a governor, but before I can do that, statute says that the matter must go before the parole board. And so trying to get this in an expedited fashion to the parole board and then having them act upon the evidence that they have in a quick fashion and get a quick turnaround has been what our goal has been. I have issued some pardons based upon this program, but not too many. And so it's been a disappointment for me. So we're taking another run at this and kind of kicking this off today. And I hope you will be able not only to listen, but it's really what we do after this program. And if there are things that we need to alter or change, we're open to suggestions, but we really do need your help to spread the word. I am sure that there are thousands of Ohioans who, if we had the facts in front of us and we knew what they have done since they committed the crime and since they got that felony, that we would look at that and say, well, that person certainly should be given a pardon. There are thousands of people I know out there, but it's getting them in front of us, getting that paperwork in front of us, getting the background check done and the information that we need to really be able to honestly make that evaluation is what we need. So I think number one, we have to increase the knowledge of this program, that it does in fact exist. And so, we're on here today. I know we have members of the media today. Some of them have already written stories about this in the past. But for all of you who are on here today listening, if you could spread that word after today and help us get that word out, this is something that I very, very much want to do, something I take very seriously, and something that I think is the right thing to do. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor.
Good afternoon. I am Walter Rice, and I've been involved in one role or another in the criminal justice system for almost 58 years. For more than 51 of those years, I have been blessed to be able to serve as a judge in various courts in Ohio and in the federal system. I'm just about at the quarter century mark in working in the reentry process to help people coming home from prison reintegrate into the community. I give you that background as a means of emphasizing that I simply cannot overemphasize the importance and impact of the governor's expedited pardon process. I truly believe that this project is one of the most important criminal justice initiatives of the last decade. One of the biggest falsehoods that we are told when we are young, at least we were told in my generation, is that once you have served your sentence for your crime, you have paid your debt to society and the slate is wiped clean. It simply doesn't work that way. A criminal felony conviction, or perhaps a number of misdemeanors, unless a person is very, very fortunate, follows one to the grave, costing that individual countless opportunities in employment, housing, professional advancement, ability to volunteer, and in a myriad of other matters that we often take for granted. Many times resulting in that person becoming a recidivist, or at the very least, causing that individual and often his family to live on the margins of society or in poverty. Ohio's expungement law, although recently broadened, is still too narrow to cover many who have long since turned their lives around and who want nothing more than to be judged by what they are today and by their future potential to serve their communities, judged by the present and future rather than being judged by their past for crimes committed, often when they were very young. Crimes that unfortunately present terrible obstacles to their full reintegration into the community. I frequently meet people who, when they were young and foolish, and might have made a mistake when they were 18, 19, 20 years of age. And they find that 30 and 40 years later, that criminal conviction really is an impediment to the lives and the lives of their family. This project provides the opportunity for persons to be judged by their present and not by their past. By shortening the pardon process from 3 to 4 years to one of 6 to 12 months, and by broadening the category of eligible persons when compared with the expungement statute and the traditional pardon process, the expedited pardon process truly provides the means whereby individuals can put their past behind them and achieve recognition for all they have done to put their lives in order. Thank you all for participating in this program this afternoon. Your being here in such record numbers is proof positive that in Ohio, the criminal justice system is fast transitioning from one that is purely punitive to one where rehabilitation is taking its rightful place. I do want to commend Governor DeWine for sponsoring this program. I think his having done so and his doing so is proof positive of the heart, the soul, and compassion of this man. Thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you, Judge Rice. At this time, we will have a presentation by Attorney Sarah Ackman, who is Deputy Legal Counsel for the Office of Governor Mike DeWine.
Thank you. Can you hear me, Dr. Reynolds? Thank you. So as you can tell from the opening comments, this is really a passion project of the governor, and we're so glad to have this opportunity today. And I just briefly want to thank Faith-Based, our Minority Affairs, Ron Todd, as well as the Justice Institute for helping us put this together and bring you all here today. First, before I get into the slides, which have the nuts and bolts of what this project looks like and what the criteria is, I just want to explain a couple of terms that I think will be helpful because they're used a lot when we talk about pardons. So the first word I want to talk about is clemency. So the governor indicated in his remarks that clemency is given to him in the Ohio Constitution. That is the umbrella power. Under clemency, there are a couple of different kinds of clemency that people can apply for. The one, of course, that we're going to talk about today is a pardon. The other two are a commutation and a reprieve. We're not going to talk about those in detail today, but I did just want to mention those because sometimes we might use the word clemency and sometimes we might use the word pardon. But clemency is that umbrella term for the power that the governor has. So real briefly, a reprieve would be if the governor delayed the execution of someone's sentence. And a commutation would be if the governor were to reduce someone's sentence. So if they were serving, for example, 10 years in prison and the governor reduced that sentence in some way. The pardon, of course, which we're going to talk about in great detail today, is the ultimate act of forgiveness by the government. And so if you were to receive a pardon, you actually receive a piece of paper signed by the governor, a legal document that indicates that you are forgiven of those crimes. So the governor outlined briefly that it does have to go through the parole board. The recommendation that the parole board gives is not binding upon the governor. It is just a recommendation. So he makes that ultimate decision, but those applications by statute do have to go through the parole board. And we'll talk about this in the Q&A in more detail, but I do want to point out that a pardon is not a sealing of your record. As the judge indicated, sometimes you might apply for a pardon for something that you can't get sealed from your record, but that's not always going to be the case. Sometimes you might be eligible for both. But just because you get a pardon under our current law, it does not mean that you also get a sealing of your record. And we will have the law schools talk about what a sealing of record is and how that's different in greater detail. So if we could go to the next slide. So this slide outlines how the traditional process is different from the expedited process. So now I'm going to get into the nuts and bolts. So the traditional process, Joanne Saul, who is a professor at Akron, who has been doing this work for many years, will tell you she has had clients that it has taken up to 4 years to receive their pardon from the governor in the past. And with our new process, so far we have made it between 6 to 12 months. We're always aiming to make the process as quick as we can, but the point is that it went from years to months. The other difference with the expedited process is that now you can fill out a one-page pre-screening application, and that will go through the basic criteria of whether you qualify for the expedited process. That piece of paper is available on our website, which we'll give you the resource for at the end, as well as Ohio State's website. So that pre-screening form, you send that to the law school, they review it, and very quickly will tell you whether you qualify. We also ask that you get a BCI check, which is a fingerprint background check, which is required for the full application. And then if you do qualify, the law school will help you put together the rest of your packet, which is a lot more paperwork, gathering of documents, and can be very cumbersome. But at least you have the law school helping you through that process. And it is our hope that community organizations that might be listening today might identify ways that they could help people that they may know in their community to put those packets together as well. The other advantage to the expedited process is that the parole board has committed to giving expedited hearing dates in cases that have been identified through this pre-screening process. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So here's the criteria. So you have to have completed your sentence at least 10 years ago. So that means that if you were on probation, for example, that you've had 10 years since your probation was terminated. Or if you went to prison, that there has been 10 years since you were released from any sort of supervision after prison. Also, in that 10-year period of time, you can have no other criminal convictions. Minor traffic does not disqualify you. You also have to have made a good faith effort to pay your fines and court costs and restitution. Now, we say we want it to be a good faith effort. There are certainly going to be some circumstances where there are circumstances that, you know, it isn't paid for some reason. So we just ask that you have made a good faith effort, or there is a reasonable explanation for, you know, why those were not paid. Another requirement is that you have had some sort of employment since your conviction, or that you have, again, a reasonable explanation why you have not been employed. Oh, can we go back one? I got a couple more. Thank you. Also, we ask that you have contributed to your community with some sort of community service or volunteer service. And I would ask you to think about that in very broad terms. That can be, you know, helping at church, helping with, you know, a food bank. Think about that very broadly, because we don't want someone to think about it narrowly and then not apply for that reason. And then last would be that you don't have a disqualifying offense. So that is on the next slide. So there's a lot of offenses listed here, but what I will summarize to tell you is that the majority of these offenses are sexually oriented offenses, sexual assaults, homicide related, or aggravated violent felonies. So what's different about our program than a lot of other programs in other states is that, if you can just go back one more, thank you, is that our program, it allows people to apply that have had a variety of offenses that may not have otherwise gotten such consideration. So this list may feel intimidating and long, but if you take a look at it, which is also on our website, you will see that these are very aggravated felonies. Okay, ready for the next one. So let's talk about that initial screening process. So as I told you before, applicants would complete the initial screening document and get their BCI background check. Joanne could tell you better, but I want to say it's approximately $30. You have to go get a fingerprint. There are certain places, usually the sheriff's office is a place that you can do that. And then the document, that one-page document, can be found on our website. So you submit the one pager, the project team at the law school reviews that, and in quick time will give you an answer whether you meet the criteria. They will then notify you whether you meet the criteria or not. And if you do, then they will begin that process of helping you collect your documents and get your full application prepared. The other thing that the parole board will do at that time is they will simultaneously start your background check. And when I say background check, it's not just the BCI check, but a full, you know, review and analysis of your criminal record that they undergo. And they will start that process while simultaneously while you were doing your application to save some time. Then, as I mentioned, the team will help you get your application together. There are certain documents that you have to get, such as your prior criminal entries and letters of recommendation. And the team will help guide you through that process so that it makes it easier for you to know where to go and what to get. And then they submit the application to the parole board. The parole board has to give at least a 60-day notice to victims and courts, but they are setting these hearings in an expedited way. They will then have the hearing, turn it around to the governor's office, usually within 30 days, and then the governor is quick to make a decision based upon the hearing, all of the evidence presented, as well as the recommendation, which again is not binding. So I think that is my last slide. But there was one more thing I wanted to mention, that if you review this criteria on your own and say, for example, you are 1 year short of the 10 years, you have a couple of options. You could wait until you have the 10 years and then apply, or you can go ahead and apply. It just wouldn't be the expedited process. So I don't know that we have it on our website yet, but I'm going to make sure they add a link for the traditional process for those that realize they don't qualify for some reason. That link is also on the Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections website as well. So with that, I will send it back to Director Reynolds, and just appreciate you all being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. We really appreciate the presentation and all of the information that you have shared. At this time, we are going to go into our panel discussion, and it is my privilege to introduce our amazing expert panel that will engage us in today's important conversation on the Expedited Pardon Project and its process. The first panelist we have is Bishop Dr. Mark McGuire, Sr., and he is the founder and executive director and CEO of CARES Justice Institute, Incorporated. Bishop McGuire is a native Daytonian and the CEO and Bishop of the Potter's House, Dayton International Ministries. Dr. McGuire has worked as a consultant for the state of Ohio and the city of Dayton in many community transformation initiatives and has a deep personal passion for reentry and social justice. We also have attorney Sarah Ackman, who we just heard from. She serves as deputy legal counsel in the office of the Ohio Governor Mike DeWine. In this capacity, Sarah serves as legal liaison with public safety agencies, including the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction, Ohio Department of Public Safety, and the Ohio Department of Youth Services. Sarah also handles the clemency applications as they are received from the parole board and presents them to the governor. Next, we have attorney Andy Wilson, who serves as the Criminal Justice Policy Advisor in the office of Ohio Governor Mike DeWine. Prior to joining the governor's office as senior advisor for criminal justice policy, Andy served in the Clark County, Ohio prosecutor's office for 16 years, including the role of Clark County prosecutor. In his current capacity, Andy has been instrumental in assisting the governor with the Strong Ohio Initiative, law enforcement reform initiatives, the Expedited Pardon Project, the establishment of the Ohio Narcotics Intelligence Center, and the Ohio School Safety Center. And then last but not least, we have Professor Joanne Saul, who serves as the director of the legal clinic at the University of Akron Law School. She supervises the reentry clinic, the civil practice clinic, and teaches appellate practice and procedure. Before joining Akron Law, Professor Saul served as a staff attorney in the housing unit of Community Legal Aid Services in Akron at Columbus Legal Aid. And Columbus Legal Aid. Additionally, she served as Assistant State Public Defender at the Ohio Public Defender Commission, eventually rising to Chief Appellate Counsel and Supervisor of the Death Penalty Section. Good afternoon, panel. At this time, I would like to start by asking each of you to take a brief moment to introduce yourselves and share just a brief opening remarks before we start with our questions. And we will start with Bishop McGuire.
First of all, just honored to be here as a part of the Ohio Governor's Expedited Pardon Project. Excited to be a part of this panel and this discussion, and we're just looking forward to some of the things that will culminate not only from this discussion, but from the project itself and the process that's been put in place. And we here at CARES Justice Institute want to be not only an advocate for applicants, but an assistance to the governor's office in making sure this is a smooth process for all those looking to be pardoned and doing it in an expeditious way. So thank you for having us here.
Thank you, Bishop. Next, we'll have attorney Sarah Ackman.
Thank you. You already heard quite a bit from me, but I would just like to add that my background is as a prosecutor, prosecuting felonies, violent felonies, and getting the opportunity to work on this project has been really a neat experience because I get to see individuals on the complete other side of criminal justice. I get to see people who have completely turned their lives around and redeemed themselves and be a part of helping them in terms of, reentry. And so just glad to be here and glad to have the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. And next we will have Attorney Andy Wilson.
Thank you, Director. Good afternoon, everybody. Let me start by saying it's such an honor to be part of this presentation this afternoon. And I just want to express to everybody who is in attendance how passionately the governor feels about this issue and how much he believes in this program. And working with the governor and all of our partner agencies on this project, again, it is such an important project for the administration and everybody involved. And it is such an important project because it has the power to change people's lives. It really does. Some of the offenses that the governor is willing to pardon under this project are offenses that other states wouldn't ever look at. There are a felonious assault or some of the traditional even violent offenses that people commit when they're 18, 19, whether it's a bar fight or getting mixed up with the wrong crowd, that would just absolutely disqualify you in a lot of other places. The governor understands that if a person's done their time for that offense and that person truly is rehabilitated, then that person needs to be forgiven in the eyes of the law. So it's an incredible project. There's a lot of potential, and we just hope today to plant the seeds to allow it to grow to its full potential. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. And we will now have Professor Saul. If you can introduce yourself, please.
Thank you, Director. I just want to say to everyone how excited I am to be here today. As one of the folks working in the project and helping people put their applications together, it is truly life-changing. As the governor mentioned, I know there are so many more people out there who are eligible, and we need to find them. We need to encourage them to submit their applications to the project, because for all of my clients who've received pardons, it truly is life-changing. So I want to thank everyone who's taking the time today to participate. And I hope you'll tell just one person about the project and we get more people into the project. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our panelists. We really appreciate your participation in today's important conversation. Now we're actually going to get into our questions here. The first question we have for Attorney Andy Wilson. I know the governor had shared a little bit about the concept of this program, but could you elaborate a little further? How did the concept of this program come about?
Absolutely. Thank you. Everybody kind of heard the governor talk about this in his comments. I'd like to give, for a minute or so, some context to how the discussions about this program came about. So pretty early on in the governor's administration, he brought a group of us in over there at the State House at his office. He sat us down and he was talking about his ideas on criminal justice reform. As he spoke to us about his ideas, it became pretty obvious that his philosophy on criminal justice reform really kind of falls into three pillars or three kind of areas of concentration. The first area, as he spoke to us, was, look, here in Ohio, the governor believes that we need to do a better job of making sure that we get the right people in prison. So people who are violent, people who are sex offenders, people who are truly a risk to public safety, when they commit crimes and they're convicted of those crimes, and we need to make sure that those people are in a spot where they can't hurt people or hurt others. But he also expressed that we need to do a better job here in Ohio of diverting people out of the system who may not belong initially in prison. So if somebody is convicted of a lower level nonviolent offense, or if somebody is involved in criminal behavior and really the basis of that criminal behavior is addiction or mental health issues, then before that person is sent to the state penitentiary, we need to make sure that we do everything in our community to make sure that they're treated, to get them the treatment, the rehabilitation that they need before we resort to to send them into prison. So that was the first pillar. The second pillar of the governor's philosophy was, or is, that look, once we have somebody in prison and once they've been sent to prison, then we need to make sure that as a state, we're doing everything in our power to rehabilitate them. So that's not only just the soft skills, such as treatment for substance abuse issues or mental health counseling or cognitive behavioral therapy, but we need to make sure that we are giving them vocational skills and life skills so that when they come out of prison, they can come back into society and become a productive member of society, have the job skills, the family skills, everything they need to not only survive when they get out, but to thrive, so that, again, society will be better when this person comes back into our society. And then the third prong is what you heard him talk about in his introductory comments. Look, once somebody's done their time, once somebody has come out and proved that they are rehabilitated, then as a government, as the criminal justice system, we need to forgive them. And it was pretty apparent in his opening statements that the governor is absolutely passionate about this part. And when he sat us down on that day and he talked to us, he expressed his desire to use his executive authority to forgive people in the eyes of the law through the pardon. And we talked for a long time about how, as a state, do we think we can improve the way we do this? What are some of the problems? And as we talked, what stood out to the group was everybody at that table knew somebody in their life, personally, not just professionally, but personally, who had committed some kind of crime when they were younger and had come out, had paid their dues, and for 10, 15, 20 years lived as a pillar of the community. As we talked about our own stories, and again, the governor included, the governor and people in his life who had done these things, as we talked about these stories, we talked about the concept of, look, how can we more efficiently get these people into the pardon process? How can Governor DeWine give these people the forgiveness in the eyes of the law that the pardon allows them to have? So that was our task. He basically told the group of us, hey, go forth and figure this out. And we got with the subject matter experts, folks like Professor Saul, who have been doing this for years and years and years and know how everything works in the trenches and what the problems are and some of the sticking points. And for a period of several months, we sat down and talked about how we could do it better. And as a result, we came up with the criteria for the pardon project. And now really the challenge that we're facing is just getting it out to folks and getting people to participate and partake in this opportunity that really, again, if you look around and think about people in your life who've been convicted, I bet you none of them would think, oh, I wonder if I can get a pardon. So again, this allows them to do it. It makes it easy for them. It makes it efficient for them. And it makes it really free. Other than the background check, you don't have to pay a couple $1,000s for attorneys. There's no legal fees really involved. So that's how the program came about. That's a lot of the context to how we got here. And we just would like, as a group, and I know Governor DeWine is passionate about it, we'd like to see the program live up to its full potential.
Thank you, Andy. I really appreciate that information. Very helpful. The next question is for Sarah. What are the biggest challenges or barriers? What are the biggest barriers or challenges to filling out the application, and how can community organizations help?
So I think that from my perspective, one of the most difficult things for people to navigate is they have to get their prior criminal sentencing entry. And if you don't work in the court system or aren't familiar with it, that can be a confusing, overwhelming process. And so that's where community organizations can help people to point them in the right direction of what building they even go to, help them just navigate that process. Another thing that can be a big barrier is when they're putting together the application, putting together some letters of reference and documents that might be helpful to show what they've done with their life. And the law school is going to be very helpful with that, but also that's where I think community organizations can help, people to, you know, just help them gather all those sorts of documents, even just to help people print, you know, the application. That can be, especially where we find ourselves now with COVID and libraries not being as available as they once were, just having the application printed for them, you know, helping them figure out where to go to get the things they need to get. So also spreading the word, which, you know, we can't say enough, in terms of just letting people know about the program, and that it casts a wide net. There's a lot of people that we think will qualify for this program. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that information. Our next question is, what volunteer experience do I need to be considered for the project? And I'll ask Andy to share on that question. Andy or Sarah?
Yeah, I think Sarah hit this pretty well in her opening comments when she was talking about it. Look, anything that could be considered as a volunteer experience. So if you are, you know, if you're active in your church and you're a greeter at your church door, or you help shovel snow, you know, for the church, or you've helped volunteer at your kid's school, or, you know, any coaching, you know, we would look at coaching. So anything, we encourage folks to think as broadly as possible about what could be considered a volunteer experience. And if they don't have it, again, we're not asking for volunteer experience. You don't have to do it for a certain period of time. It's not like you had to be a deacon at your church for a year or anything like that. Really, it's more about just getting out there and serving in some capacity your broader community.
Thank you, Andy. I want to know about the 10-year requirement for no convictions. I know, Attorney Ackman, you shared in your presentation that there is a 10-year requirement. I'm wondering if you could explain what that means.
Sure. So that means that you have to have had 10 years from the end of your sentence, and that will be different for different people. So if you had a misdemeanor offense and you served probation, then you would start it from the time that it was terminated, which you can usually find. Most clerk of courts have online dockets that you can look up to see when your probation would be terminated. Or just if you remember, you don't have to have that, you know, document in the beginning. If you were incarcerated and you came out of prison and you had no parole or post-release control, then it would be from the time that you're released from prison. If you came out of prison and you were on some sort of supervision, whether that was parole or post-release control, then it would be from the time that that was terminated. That's when the clock would start on the 10 years. So this would be for people that have 10 years past the end of whatever their sentence was. Thank you.
That's very helpful. Thank you so much for distinguishing that fact. Our next question is for Professor Saul. Could you please explain the difference between a pardon and the sealing of a record?
So let's start with the sealing of a record first. I think for most of the people who are probably participating today, you've heard the sealing, it's called expungement. If you ask most people, they will call it expungement, but it's really sealing of your criminal record. And what that means is you apply to the court where your conviction occurred, and if the court finds you eligible, your record is sealed from public view. Now, the problem with sealing, and Judge Rice mentioned this, is you might have a disqualifying conviction. Many of the convictions you can seek a pardon for, you might not be able to get sealed. And also it's important to note that the law allows certain employers and public agencies to still see sealed convictions. So the great thing about a pardon is it applies to all convictions if you're eligible, and particularly the convictions in the Expedited Pardon Project. So what does a pardon mean? It means forgiveness by the governor of your punishment. So it ends any current punishment and any future punishment. They call those disabilities. So if you're having trouble getting a job or a professional license, or we see a lot of applicants who want to volunteer or be coaches in their kids' schools, a pardon is really the avenue for them. So it could be that you do both, but there are many, many cases where folks are not eligible for sealing, and so the pardon is a good choice for them.
Thank you for sharing that. That is very important that we make that distinction. Our next question, Professor Saul, is, let's see, what is the difference then between the sealing of a record and an expungement?
So this is a perfect follow-up question to what I was just discussing, because for years and years, we've all called it expungement, but it's sealing. As I just explained, the court process where you apply where your conviction occurred is sealing. An expungement is different. It's actually destruction of your criminal record. When you get your record sealed by a court, it's not destroyed. They take the file and they place it somewhere so it's out of public view unless the law allows an employer or an agency to see it. For an expungement, your record is actually destroyed. There are only two very narrow circumstances in Ohio where you can seek an expungement. And one involved the changing of the law of carrying a weapon in your car. And the other one involves people who are the victims of human trafficking, and their convictions are as a result of being the victims of human trafficking. Those are the only two circumstances in Ohio where you're going to have your record sealed or your record destroyed. So either your record's going to be destroyed, it's going to be sealed, or you can get a pardon, or perhaps all three.
Great, thank you so much for sharing that. Next, I'd like to turn this question to Bishop Mark McGuire. Bishop, you certainly have a personal passion for social justice and reentry, and we are really happy to be in partnership with the CARES Justice Institute for the Governor's Expedited Pardon Project. Can you tell us why the CARES Justice Institute decided to get involved in this initiative and how the organization assists, but also tell us a little bit about the CARES Justice Institute, if you would.
Well, thank you so much. The CARES Justice Institute is a civil rights and social justice organization in Dayton, Ohio, serving both Dayton, Ohio and the entire Miami Valley region. And as our acronym suggests, the Community Alliance for Restorative Education and Social Justice Institute, the restorative space of our initiatives affectionately relate to the equality of opportunity for those individuals who have found themselves immersed in the criminal justice system. And so we at CARES believe that some form of redemption or forgiveness are necessary of the opportunity of citizens in our communities who have effectively concluded all of their requirements for the crimes of which they were convicted and sentenced. And so pardons give them this new horizon. It gives them this new lease on life. And as others have mentioned, it's a change of their lives altogether. And so, we're very thankful for the governor's office and the University of Akron, the Ohio State University, and all those that are a part of this, because we believe that as an advocate for these individuals who are applying, that's going to be paramount for agencies like ours and others that want to work with and through our agency assisting the governor's office to help these individuals navigate this process. Because even though it's still expedited, there are still going to be some barriers, and there's still going to be some bridges, gaps that need to be bridged, and there's going to be processes within this process that may be found difficult for many people. I believe Attorney Ackman has mentioned, or Sarah Ackman, I'm sorry, the governor's liaison. I believe she mentioned that there are going to be things that could be difficult for the individual. Something as simple as printing the documents, mailing the documents, making sure they get the BCI checks, making sure that they navigate the process on the next step, even when they're talking with the University of Akron, keeping them motivated. Even though it's not 3 or 4 years, it's still 6 months to a year while they're still working and trying to do things in community and with their families. So just trying to help them articulate what's going to take place and how things are working, making some explanations, and then giving them that comfort of someone that has that credibility and trustworthiness with them as they navigate this process, and just keeping them encouraged throughout. So CARES is excited about it. We have several initiatives, and we too will post the information on our website and on social media platforms not only encouraging people to go on to the website, the governor's website, and to the Ohio Expedited Partner Project website, but also being able to call us directly, email us directly, so that we can assist them. Though we have no influence on the outcome, we believe that the influence that we'll give will be to encourage them to continue the process, to not stop, and to stay active until they see this process completed. So we're totally excited and looking forward to all those that will want to be a part of assisting our applicants with the Ohio pardon process, or just directly helping citizens to apply themselves. So we're thankful and grateful.
Thank you, Bishop. We appreciate all that you're doing to amplify and to push this initiative forward. Along the same lines, we have our last question for our panelists, and that is, what can others do to help this program succeed? And I'd really like each of our panelists to take a few moments and just share what you think others can do to help this program succeed. And I will start with you, Bishop.
Well, I think number one, we need to market it. We need to make sure in all of our spheres of influence that we mention that this program is up and moving. It's a passionate program of the governor's office. It's not something that's whimsical. It's something that means something to all those that are involved, that we encourage people not to be afraid. We're not trying to open up new cans of worms, and to make sure they get educated on the process so that people aren't frustrated, but definitely market it. We need to use our social media platforms, our websites, just personal influence by mouth, and then posturing yourselves as we are with a formalized process and with partners that will help people, at least in that first stage, on that one sheet application that gets filled out and then sent to the University of Akron for recommendation to move forward. So, but if you don't know what to do, give us a call at the CARES Justice Institute. If you don't get information that's easy through the Ohio Governor's Expedited Partners website, and we'll be absolutely welcoming you to be a part of what we're doing and helping those get involved.
Thank you, Bishop. Professor Saul, could you share?
I think from my perspective, the biggest way what others can do to help the program succeed is something the Bishop already talked about, is our applicants need encouragement. First, they need to believe this process is going to work, because a lot of folks who come to me don't believe there really is a pardon process, or they're going to get their records sealed. And so they don't even apply because they don't believe it's going to work. So we really need to spread the word that, yes, the governor does want to pardon people, and yes, it is going to work, and it's going to change your life. So that's why I really encourage you to talk to everyone who might be eligible and say, hey, we listened to all those folks today, and this process works. Let's get your application in.
That's great. Thank you so much, Professor Saul. Sarah?
Thank you. From my perspective, I think spreading the word. So, that depends upon who you are. If you are, the CARES Institute, then you post on your website, you reach out to community groups that you have contact with. If you're media, you help us to publicize, this event and the project. If you are an individual who knows someone, tell your friend. The governor is very serious about this program. I receive emails sometimes, late at night and early in the morning asking me, when are we getting more applications? He really wants this program to help people, and he's really serious about it. And so it depends upon who you are, but however you can to help us spread the word, so that we get more applications. I think that we've had, Joanne can correct me, but something like 75 people apply. We've had 9 pardons granted, not all under this program, because it wasn't, it took us a while to get it off its feet, but we're very serious about it, and we want to look at each of these applications individually and look at all of the facts and circumstances. And the governor, he does that with each and every one of these. So spread the word. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. And Andy, could you share with us from your perspective?
Thank you. I'm going to piggyback a little bit on what Sarah said. I would encourage everybody on this call to think both macro and micro. So what I mean, so macro, look, how can you help the broader community? What can you do in your community? Is that get the information to your church, get it to community organizations? Is it volunteer, as an organization to help people, walk them through the process, make sure they have their paperwork, make sure they know where to go? That's the macro level. But really on the micro level, I would encourage everybody on this call or in this meeting to think about 2 or 3 people in your life who could benefit from this. Again, when we initially started putting this program together and talked about what it could do, I was talking to we were circled up in the gym one day, and there was a guy in the gym that I know who had gotten some trouble when he was a kid, and I was telling him about the program. And just in that small group of people, 2 or 3 other guys chimed in like, well, hey, wait a second. When I was 19, I did X, or when I was 21, I did Y. And it's amazing how many people in your life that this program would benefit. So just think about them, reach out to them, encourage them to partake in it. And again, so often we think of a pardon as something that a governor or a president or someone does on their way out the door, for people. And it's clear that this governor is passionate about forgiving people for missteps that they've had in their life. And we just want people to take advantage of it.
All very wonderful responses. We want to thank our panelists for engaging us in that conversation and this very important discussion today. I know that it's going to help a lot of people, and I just echo what you've said about making sure that we get this information out there so that we can help people get their lives back. At this time of the program, we are going to move into our Q&A session. We have some attendees that have placed some questions in the Q&A chat feature. And so if you do have a question, we ask that you use the Q&A section on the screen, and we will publicly acknowledge your question. We will have this moderated by Ron Todd, who's actually going to come on here now, and he's going to take it from here. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you, Director Reynolds. Thank you for the panelists. You did an awesome job answering all the questions. And so we have a limited time here because everybody's scheduled busy. So I'll go through the questions here on the question and answer. So our first question is from the Bishop Eugene Ward Jr. Thank you, Governor DeWine, and thank you, Judge Rice, for your distinction and relaying the truth that are still paying for crimes after incarceration. Pastors and churches in Cuyahoga County are working to implement this pardon project in Northeast Ohio. How soon can those who apply can hope to receive an answer? And should we encourage those who apply to still go through the expungement process? So I'll give that to the panel for someone to answer. Or if we need multiple answers, that's fine too. So panel.
I'll take the question about how long. We've been getting back to people within a week after we've received their full application, assuming that we have everything. If we don't have everything that's required, we don't have the BCI, we'll ask them for more information. Now, that timeline is based upon the number of applications we have. If we get 1,000 applications in the next month, it'll be a little hard to get back in a week, but we really are committed to turning the applications around as quickly as we can and getting an answer.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I'll jump in on the expungement side, and Professor Saul, obviously feel free to chime in as well because you're the expert in this. But I certainly think if you're eligible for expungement, we would encourage you to continue down the sealing. Excuse me. If you're eligible for sealing, we would encourage you to go down the sealing route as well as the pardon route.
Thank you. Any more things else to do? We'll go to the next question. This is from an anonymous attendee. This is a good one too for the group. If someone committed a felony in Ohio, but now lives in South Carolina, are they able to apply for this expedited pardon, or does she need to do this in South Carolina? If someone's committed to felony in Ohio, yes.
We have had applicants who are not living in the state of Ohio. And I think we've already had an applicant pardoned who's not living in the state of Ohio. So as long as you have a conviction in Ohio, you can apply through the project.
Okay, thank you so much. Next question is, what would I need to do to get my felonies expunged? From Greg D. What would I need to do to get my felonies expunged?
The answer is it depends on where you live. You might want to see if your local public defender office or legal aid office can give you some advice about whether you're eligible. You might also see if your local clerk of courts has paperwork to be able to file the sealing.
Thank you so much. This is from L. Howard. Does one have to wait the full 10 years after prison to file for traditional pardon too? This is for traditional pardon, so some of the wait 10 years.
I'll take that one. No, you don't. So under the traditional process, there's no time requirement. And as I mentioned earlier, the traditional process, the application can be found on the Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections website. And it's something that has only occurred to me today as we've had this conversation. So I'm going to ask our communications team to add that tab about, how to find the traditional application so that people that don't qualify for the expedited still know where they need to go straight from our website. But no, there's no time requirement for the traditional.
Okay, thank you. Another question. My son and I got into it when I was about 19. I believe I was charged with a domestic. Will that disqualify me? Other than that, it has been probably 20 years since last trouble. So this person got into with their son and was charged with domestic. So would that disqualify them from this pardon?
Generally speaking, a domestic violence is a disqualifying offense. So on that slide that we showed during my part of the presentation, domestic violence is listed. If the charge was reduced to something else, it would probably depend upon the facts and circumstances, but really if it originated out of domestic violence, I think they're going to be a better candidate. It's hard to know without knowing all of the facts, but I would say they'd probably be a better candidate for the traditional process, because I think that the aspect of the domestic violence will be a holdup.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Ackman. This is from Barbara Dosek. The governor mentioned the need to get the word out about this program. Could there be an opportunity to expand this program to other law schools? This could assist in driving the program all over the state.
This is Andy. Yes, down the road, certainly there is the opportunity to grow this program to other law schools, to geographically cover other areas of the state and ease some of the pressure on Akron and Ohio State. So yes, if we can get the program up and rolling the way we believe it could potentially be, then there is the potential to expand to other parts of the state.
So from Sarita, does this process, which is expedited pardon process, does this require an individual to obtain an attorney?
This is Andy again. No, it does not.
Okay, great. The governor has 3 pillars, but the 10-year criteria seems a bit long. Where did you come up with the 10 years after completing their sentence? And can that be shortened? So they're concerned about the 10 years. And so they want to know how that come about.
So this is Andy. That was the result of a lot of discussions with the subject matter experts and the administration. Now remember, the 10-year time period does not apply to the traditional pardon process. It only applies to the expedited pardon process. So, with respect to the expedited pardon project or process, we to a certain degree wanted to put factors in that would allow us to jump folks to the fast lane, really, and make the process more efficient. And the 10-year time period is, again, as we discussed with the subject matter experts and the other folks who were working on the project with us, is what we felt comfortable with to allow these to be more efficient in the process.
Thank you, Attorney Wilson. I have a question here from Andrea White. On a practical level, how is the pardon open doors for cases where sealing is not an option in terms of employment? And how are employers being brought on board to encouraging hiring of pardoned individuals?
So I can just tell you anecdotally that there are a lot of employers that prefer pardons over sealing. Because remember, even though it's sealed, the employer still might be able to see it. Because people appreciate the fact of how hard it is to get a pardon. And for the governor to grant you that forgiveness, employers really appreciate it. So we counsel our clients about how to talk to employers about their pardon convictions. But my experience has been that it really has opened doors for clients.
Thank you for that. This is from David Greer. How would the project implement and address the disbursement the demographics, primarily Black Americans, with non-discriminatory methods? This must come from attorney, guys. How would the project implement and address the disbursement of demographics, primarily Black African American with non-discriminatory methods? Anybody want to answer that question?
I would just like to.
I don't
to make a
understand the
suggestion.
question. Oh, go ahead, Bishop.
I'd like to make a suggestion. The disproportionate and discriminatory actions that normally take place, there's maybe nothing we can do to absolutely guarantee that it doesn't take place. But one of the things that CARES wants to be a part of as a partner is helping not only in advocacy, but also in accountability. And one of the things that we're even suggesting is possibly being a part of the entire navigation process with the applicant, where the applicant is allowing us to get the information that they've been accepted and that it's moving to the next level. It's going to the parole board, and that will help us in just assuring that no one is thrown away. So as much as we are a partner, we also want to help set demographics and some analytics to how the process is working for people of all colors and making sure there is no disparity in that area. So I don't know if anyone can guarantee that, but we'll definitely be looking at making sure that there is no discriminatory action that's taking place. And we are feeling very confident that there would not be any, or we wouldn't be a partner.
Thank you so much for that, Bishop McGuire. And from with that, so we are trying to, me as the Minority Affairs Liaison, working hard to make sure that everyone is taken care of. As Governor Wine says, I'm the governor for every constituent state of Ohio, and he means that. And that's why he put this and other things he put out there for that. But thank you for the question. Anonymous attendee, with House Bill 1, can a person that was formerly not eligible to apply for expungement or record seal with this new bill, can they now apply? What is the process? I'll read again. With House Bill 1, can a person that was formerly not eligible to apply for expungement or record seal with this new bill, can they now apply? What is the process?
Well, it's really hard to determine if they're eligible because you have to look at your convictions, and under the new law, if your convictions are some that can be sealed. That's why I really encourage folks who want to know about their eligibility to contact their local legal aid or public defender office, because if the bill expanded and they're now eligible, they would be able to file now.
Thank you so much. Another question from an anonymous attendee. Once a person receives a pardon, can they then apply for expungement or record seal? And what is the process? Once a person receives a pardon, can they apply for expungement or record seal? And then what is the process?
So I can take this one. Attorney Ackman mentioned at the beginning, there's currently no process to seal pardon convictions. But if you're eligible for the sealing separate from the pardon, you can still file a sealing application with the court.
All right, thank you so much. Someone here says they want to, how do I get an application and where do I send it? So someone wants to get an application right now. They love this presentation. They want to get it. So how do we get an application to them today? Someone can
So
answer that question.
we're gonna, Director Reynolds, I think the last slide that we have is going to have our website. It's going to have Ohio State's website. Both of those websites have the application, has all of the information that we presented here today in a pretty easy to read format. And so you can go there and see exactly what you need to do and find those links. So I think that will be the last slide that we put up. So everybody be ready for that.
Thank you so much. Next question. I got a bunch of questions. You guys are doing an excellent job. One person asked, can you have multiple felonies with multiple prisoners numbers and still be eligible to get a pardon?
Yes, you can. And in fact, I would say more often than not, that's what we have seen so far. And that's what I think separates this program from so many others, because despite the fact that there might be a variety of crimes or circumstances, the governor looks at all of the information and makes a really informed decision based upon not just what happened then, but more importantly, what they've done since then. So yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much. My name is Kelly Johnson. I work with the Franklin County Office on Aging. It's common for older adults who have felony convictions to miss the opportunity to access federal subsidized housing. If the older adult qualifies, would a pardon or an expungement be beneficial with removing this barrier?
The answer is yes. So when they're applying for their subsidized housing, they should be submitting the warrant of pardon that they've been pardoned. And also they should be arguing to their housing authority or the subsidized housing organization that they've been rehabilitated, and the governor's pardon proves that.
Thank you so much. The next question is from, I haven't been in trouble in years, but my domestic case disqualifies me from expungement. So this seems no different. Consider it has been years why this program's holding that against us when they say they're here to help. So this person has none trouble but had domestic case. So what can we tell them to do?
That person would still be eligible for traditional pardon through the traditional pardon route. So certainly we would encourage, and again, if it's been a long time since that conviction, obviously that is very favorable on behalf of that person in going through the traditional pardon route. It just will take a little bit longer to go through that traditional pardon route.
Thank you so much. One question was, can you be pardoned for more than one felony? Can you be pardoned for more than one felony?
So that's really the same question as that we answered a few minutes ago in terms of, can you get a pardon if you have multiple inmate numbers? And yes, you can. And many people have applied that do. I would say that it's more often what we see are people that have, a string of offenses during a period of time in their life. And just because there are multiple offenses, it's all looked at in terms of the whole picture. So yes, still apply.
Okay, great. I want to just reemphasize that because that came up about 5-6 times. So thank you so much, Attorney Ackman. This question goes back to you two again. Did I hear correctly when Sarah said that 9 out of 75 applicants were pardoned, only 12%? So why is that? Did I hear correctly when Sarah said there were 9 out of 75?
A lot of them are in varying phases of the project. So we've only received 9 recommendations for the governor to decide on so far. So the other of that 75 group are somewhere else in the process. They just haven't come to us yet.
Okay. So this young lady had a specific question. She says, my brother's application has been reviewed by the board, but not by the governor, at least to my knowledge. Is that path different than this expedited path?
I couldn't say without knowing his name specifically. And so that makes it a little difficult for me to answer. But the governor has decided on all of the expedited pardons that we've received so far. So if it is correct that it has come to the governor's office, assuming that that is a fact, then I would presume that it is not part of the expedited process. And as we have said with some of the other questions, there still is the traditional process, and we receive, under that umbrella of clemency for people that apply for pardons, commutations, or reprieves, or some combination of those things, we receive hundreds of applications. So that very well could be, but I can't really answer too specifically without, having an opportunity to look the person up and see where they were at in the process.
Thank you. This question says, additionally, as a family member, what can we do to support or advocate for our family members who may be seeking a pardon for Governor DeWine? And they said, thank you. What can they do to support or advocate for family members who may be seeking a pardon for Governor DeWine?
I can talk about it from the application point of view. There's so much paperwork, Attorney Ackman mentioned it, that you have to get from the court. You have to get letters of support, any documents you have that show that you've been rehabilitated. So family members who can help with any of those stages of the process would be really helpful, and just encouraging the applicant, because it is a long process. It's burdensome, and with the pandemic, it's been even harder. So any support you can give to your family member would be really helpful.
Thank you. I've seen a couple of questions come up, and this is for you, Sarah. If asseilment is granted, will the governor still consider a pardon?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because as Professor Saul mentioned, sometimes, let's say someone's applying for a job with the nursing board. The nursing board may still ask a question in a way that the prior sealed conviction would have to be revealed. But the fact that they have the pardon is this extraordinary grant of forgiveness, ultimate forgiveness from the governor. And so absolutely. And we have cases like that we've seen already in this program.
Yeah, we have several people said that they want to become a volunteer to help out the Pardon Project. Who should they contact for this? They about 6 questions about that. So how can they get involved?
Yeah, no, that's great. And we're so happy to hear that. Also on our last slide, we're going to have an email address that is specifically for this project, and it will get routed to the correct person, whether that's me or someone else on our team. And so we will certainly follow up on that. So just look out for that last slide and shoot an email, and we'll go from there.
About 6 questions about people want to know that this was taped, and how can they get access to this at all? So this might go to Director Reynolds about being taped. They want to get involved in that. So everybody's asking that question.
So thank you for the question. Right after this, we will have our communications advisor, Jill Del Greco Donahue. She is going to share the resources and contact information, but also she can share how you can get access to the taping. However, I did say that we will be, that this is taped and we will be sharing it on the governor's website. But the specifics of that, I will have Jill go ahead and share when she comes on.
Well, thank you so much. That's all the questions we have. We're right on time. So Director Reynolds is back in your hand. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ron. And thank you to our panelists. We just did a real big blitz of questions, and you all did an amazing job. I appreciate that. I appreciate all the questions and all the attendees that hung in there with us. At this time, we are going to go ahead and share information about the resources that you will need if you are interested in exploring the Expedited Pardon Project. Jill, if you are with us, if you could go ahead and unmute and go ahead and share with us. Thank you.
Hi, thanks, Michelle. Yeah, I'll be very brief, but just to go over the different resources we have, and I don't know, Michelle, if you're able to click on the governor's website and actually take us there, I can walk them through it. Maybe not. So if you go, while we're waiting, if you go to the governor's website, governor.ohio.gov, and you scroll towards the bottom of the homepage, you'll see the governor's main priorities. And from there, sorry about that. From there, you'll see the governor's priorities, and there will be a link at the bottom that says the Pardon Project. And you can click on that link, and that has all the information. We just launched this updated website today, has all the information that you need. And it's ultimately going to refer you to Ohio State's website if you're ready to apply. But our website has all the basic information, step-by-step of how you go through this process. And then the link to how to apply on the expeditedpardon.org site that you also see linked there. And then so from there, and someone asked about, well, where would we see this video a video recording of this from today? We will have that on the governor's site. You'll see that there's a place where you have information on how to apply. So we'll have that video there for you, this video of this recording to refer back to. It may take a couple days to get there, but we will get it up for you, and it'll also be on the governor's YouTube page as well. So you just have to search for Governor DeWine YouTube, and you'll be able to find it there. The toolkit, we have a toolkit for everyone that is on the Expedited Pardon site that is hosted by OSU, ohioexpeditedpardon.org/get-involved. You will find a button there to go to the toolkit. You'll also find a link on the governor's website with the toolkit as well. And what you'll find in there is you'll find, if you're willing to help us promote the initiative, you will find talking points there. You'll find draft social media posts. You'll find graphics that you can use for social media. We even have a governor's video message that you can download and put on your social media channels to promote this and to help people understand what the initiative is about. So we have all that there for you. And of course, we are available to answer any questions and to help you out in any way that you need. If you need help communicating this, or if you just need more information about the initiative, you can always email us at pardonproject@governor.ohio.gov. So we have that email address that will be monitored, that's specifically for questions related to this this initiative, and they'll be funneled. If Sarah Ackman might be the best person to respond to your question, it'll get forwarded to her, or if you have a communications type question, it'll come to me. So I think that is what we have available for you online, and I'll send it back to Michelle. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. At this time, we are going to go ahead and close the program. We want to thank each and every one of you for registering, and we hope that you found the information very helpful. And we encourage you, if you know someone or if you are someone who may qualify for this project, we encourage you to pursue it. We are very excited to really be able to deliver this to Ohioans and to be able to restore lives. That's what it's all about. And so we really, really appreciate your time and attention today. If there's anything that we can do to help you through this project, please don't hesitate to email us at pardonproject@governor.ohio.gov and to just reach out. Feel free to go on that website, look through the resources. there are some very good stories of people who've actually been through the Pardon Project. And so I encourage you to take a look at that site and tell someone else about this. So thank you very much for your time and attention today. And we will go ahead and close. Thank you so much for coming.